chosen one, they thought they could close the door in your face, but what was written for you was already sealed long before they ever touched the handle. You might not have realized it in the moment, when things stalled, when conversations turned cold, when opportunities that looked promising suddenly disappeared. It felt personal, didn't it? Like someone somewhere decided you didn't deserve to move forward. Like there was an invisible wall placed right in your path. And for a while, it hurt. Not just the loss of the opportunity, but the quiet humiliation of feeling overlooked. Before we go deeper into this, stay with me until the very end. Don't rush away halfway through. This message unfolds slowly, piece by piece, and there's something in the later moments that might land differently for you than it does right now. And when you feel that shift inside, that quiet sense of confirmation that this message was meant to reach you, I want you to write your warmest wishes in the comments and seal them with Amen. Just once. From the heart. This is a chapter about wishes coming true and energizing the universe, about aligning your voice with what heaven has already placed in motion. But after that moment, we're moving beyond wishes. Because this story isn't about hoping anymore. It's about understanding. They tried to block you. Maybe it was obvious. Someone openly doubting you. Someone refusing to give you the chance you deserved. Someone shutting a door that felt like it had your name on it. Or maybe it was quieter than that. Subtle resistance. Emails that never got answered. Invitations that never came. Support that slowly disappeared. Whatever form it took, you felt it. You felt the pushback. You felt the friction. You felt the sense that someone, somewhere, was standing between you and something that mattered. And here's the part that takes time to understand. Sometimes people really do try to block you. Not always out of cruelty, sometimes out of insecurity, sometimes out of fear, sometimes because your growth makes them confront their own stagnation. People don't always know how to handle someone who refuses to stay small. And you stopped staying small. Maybe slowly, maybe reluctantly, but you did. You began thinking differently about your life, about your value, about the kind of future you wanted to build. And once that shift happens internally, the world around you starts reacting. Some people celebrate it. Some people resist it. Resistance doesn't mean you're wrong. Sometimes resistance is confirmation. You might look back now and see moments that felt like rejection, but were actually protection. A job you didn't get that forced you to pursue something better. A partnership that fell apart before it could drain you. A conversation that revealed someone's true character before you trusted them too deeply. At the time, it felt like loss. Now, if you're honest with yourself, you can see the redirection. The path changed, not because you failed, because you were being repositioned. There's something powerful about realizing that not every closed door is a defeat. Some are divine boundaries. Lines drawn on your behalf when you didn't have the clarity or strength to draw them yourself. You were blocked from things that would have slowed you down. You were blocked from environments that would have diminished you. You were blocked from dynamics that would have drained your energy. And in the moment, it didn't look like protection. It looked like disappointment. Disappointment can feel heavy. It makes you question your direction. It makes you replay decisions in your mind. What if I had said this instead? What if I had tried harder? What if I just wasn't enough? But here's the truth you're beginning to see now. You weren't being rejected. You were being redirected. When God decides something for your life, human interference becomes temporary. People can delay. They can complicate, they can misunderstand, but they cannot erase what has already been written into your path. That doesn't mean everything will be easy. Sometimes the path is winding. Sometimes you go through seasons where it feels like you're walking alone. But every step is shaping you. Every setback is sharpening something in you that success alone never could. You've learned patience in places where impatience once ruled. You've learned discernment after trusting the wrong voices. You've learned resilience when circumstances didn't cooperate. Those lessons are not punishments. They are preparation. Preparation for what comes next. Because what comes next requires the version of you that has been forged through all of this. If everything had opened instantly, you might not have developed the strength you carry now. If every door had welcomed you, you might not have learned how to stand firm when resistance appears. Strength grows in friction, and you've had your share of friction. There were nights when you wondered if it was all pointless, days when your motivation dipped so low you questioned everything, but you kept going. Maybe slowly, maybe quietly, but you didn't stop. That persistence is part of the reason you're here now, hearing this message. You didn't allow someone else's doubt to rewrite your identity. You didn't allow someone else's limitation to define your future. You kept building. And here's the quiet revelation that changes everything. The people who tried to block you were never in control of your destination. They were just part of the terrain. Temporary obstacles on a path that was always bigger than their opinion. God already decided. That doesn't mean you sit back and wait for life to hand you everything. It means you walk forward with confidence that your effort is not wasted. It means you stop chasing approval from people who never intended to support you. It means you invest your energy where it actually multiplies. You are learning to move with clarity instead of desperation. Desperation tries to force doors open. Clarity recognizes when a door was never meant for you. That shift in perspective frees you. You don't need everyone's validation. You don't need every opportunity. You need the right ones, and the right ones will align with who you're becoming, not who others expected you to remain. Chosen one, they may have tried to block you. They may have doubted you. They may have underestimated you. But their opinion was never the final authority over your life. The decision was made long before their resistance appeared, and the path that belongs to you is still unfolding. Chosen one, this chapter is about what happens after someone tries to block you. Because the moment of resistance is only half the story. The deeper part, the one that shapes you, is how you respond after it happens. At first, if you're honest, it hurt more than you wanted to admit. Not just the situation itself, but the feeling behind it, the feeling of being underestimated. The quiet sting of realizing that someone didn't believe in you the way you believed in them. That kind of disappointment sinks deeper than people realize. You replay the moment in your mind, the words they said, the opportunity that slipped away, the look on their face when they dismissed you, like what you carried didn't matter. And for a little while, you questioned yourself, not forever, but long enough for doubt to whisper. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I aimed too high. That's the moment where many people turn back. Not because the path was wrong, but because the resistance shook their confidence. But something in you refused to turn back, even when you slowed down, even when you paused to catch your breath. You didn't retreat completely. You stayed. That staying matters, because staying is how strength develops. When someone blocks you, there are two reactions people usually have. One is bitterness, the other is growth. Bitterness says, I'll prove them wrong. Growth says, I'll prove myself right. You chose growth more than you realize. Maybe you didn't announce it. Maybe you didn't even realize it in the moment. But you adjusted. You sharpened your skills. You observed more carefully. You learned from the experience instead of letting it harden your heart. That's rare. Some people spend years fighting ghosts from old disappointments. You decided to keep building. Slowly, quietly. There's something about this season of your life that's teaching you discernment. Not every closed door deserves your anger. Not every obstacle deserves your energy. Some situations are simply revealing where you don't belong. And belonging matters. You used to think success meant getting through every door. Now you're realizing something deeper. Success means walking through the doors that align with your purpose, not the ones that merely stroke your ego. That shift is maturity, and maturity protects you. Because when you stop chasing validation, you start recognizing opportunity more clearly. The people who tried to block you thought they had control, but they didn't understand something important. They didn't control your development. They only influenced your direction. Sometimes resistance forces you to discover strengths you didn't know you had. When support disappears, you learn self-reliance. When someone questions your worth, you learn to define it internally. When a door closes unexpectedly, you learn to create your own entrance. You're learning that now. You're not waiting for permission the way you once did. You're not asking everyone's opinion before taking a step. You're moving with more quiet confidence. That confidence didn't appear overnight. It formed in those moments where you had no choice but to trust your own judgment. Trust builds slowly, one decision at a time, one lesson at a time. And now you're beginning to see the bigger pattern. That person who tried to block you, they weren't the villain of your story. They were a mirror. They reflected where you still depended on external approval. They revealed how much power you were handing to someone else's opinion. And once you saw that clearly, something shifted. You took your power back. Not dramatically, just internally. You stopped waiting for their validation. You stopped replaying the moment. You moved forward. That forward movement matters more than you think. Because when God has already decided something for your life, the path might curve, but the destination remains. You are not defined by the people who doubted you. You are defined by the choices you made after they did. You kept learning. You kept refining your craft. You kept believing that your effort would eventually find the right environment. That belief is powerful. Not blind belief, earned belief. Belief that comes from seeing how far you've already come. Think about it. A few years ago, something like that might have crushed your confidence completely. Now, it slowed you down, but it didn't stop you. That's growth. You're stronger emotionally, more patient mentally, more grounded spiritually, and that strength changes how the world interacts with you. People feel it. They see the steadiness in your posture. They hear the clarity in your voice. You're not chasing approval anymore. You're pursuing alignment. Alignment attracts the right opportunities naturally. Not instantly, but inevitably. Chosen one, the people who tried to block you were never your final authority. They were just part of your process. And the process didn't break you. It shaped you. You needed to see that. Because the next chapter of your life requires someone who doesn't crumble at resistance. Someone who can move forward even when the path isn't smooth. Someone who understands that obstacles are not verdicts, they're adjustments. And you have become that person. Step by step, quietly, without applause. They tried to block you, but they underestimated the strength that was already forming inside you. And that strength is exactly what will carry you where you're meant to go. Chosen One. This chapter is about the moment you realized something important. The blockage wasn't just about them. At first, it was easy to focus on what they did. The words, the rejection, the door that closed when you expected it to open. You replayed it more times than you'd probably admit out loud. Not because you enjoy reliving it, but because your mind wanted to understand it. Why would they do that? Why would someone stand in the way of something good? Those questions kept circling for a while. But slowly, something deeper began to surface. It wasn't just about them trying to block you. It was about what the experience revealed inside you. There were moments where the blockage forced you to slow down and look inward. Moments where you had to ask yourself some uncomfortable questions. Questions about your expectations, your boundaries, your trust. Growth often begins there, in the uncomfortable honesty. You realized that you had been giving certain people more authority over your direction than they deserved. Not because you were weak, because you believed in cooperation. You believed in shared effort. You believed in building together. There's nothing wrong with that. But not everyone carries the same intentions. Some people see partnership as competition. Some people see someone else's potential as a threat instead of an opportunity. And when they feel threatened, they react. Sometimes subtly, sometimes openly. The hard truth is that people often block what they secretly fear. Your confidence made someone uncomfortable. Your ideas challenged someone's control. Your progress forced someone to confront their own lack of movement. And instead of growing alongside you, they resisted you. It's painful to admit that sometimes. You don't want to believe people can be that small. But here's the strange thing. Their resistance became your revelation. Without that moment, you might have stayed in an environment that couldn't sustain your growth. You might have kept shrinking your ideas to make others comfortable. You might have delayed stepping into your own authority. Instead, the resistance pushed you outward. It forced you to stand on your own. And standing on your own changed everything. At first, it felt lonely. Let's be honest about that. When someone you trusted blocks your path, there's a moment where you feel exposed, like you've been left in the middle of the road without a map. But loneliness has a strange way of turning into clarity. Without constant outside noise, you started hearing your own voice more clearly. You began asking yourself different questions, not "Who will approve this?" but "Is this aligned with who I'm becoming?" That shift is huge, because once your compass moves inward, external resistance loses its power. They can block a door. They cannot block your direction, and direction is what truly matters. You've probably noticed something about yourself recently. You're less reactive than you used to be. Situations that once would have consumed your thoughts for days now pass through your mind more calmly. You still notice them. You just don't attach the same emotional weight. That's emotional evolution. You've stopped internalizing every obstacle as a personal failure. Now you see obstacles as information. If a door closes, you ask why. If someone resists your growth, you observe it. You learn. And then you adjust your path. Adjustment is not defeat. It's intelligence. This chapter of your life is teaching you how to move without needing universal approval. That's freedom, not reckless independence, grounded independence. You still value collaboration. You still appreciate support. but you're no longer dependent on it. You understand that some journeys require a period of walking alone, not forever, just long enough to strengthen your footing. And once your footing strengthens, something interesting happens. The same kind of resistance that once felt threatening begins to look smaller. You realize that people who try to block others are usually fighting their own limitations. Their actions say more about their fears than about your future. That realization frees you, because now you don't have to carry their behavior like a burden. You can simply recognize it for what it is, a reflection of where they are, not a prophecy of where you're going. Chosen One, this chapter is not about proving anyone wrong. It's about understanding yourself more deeply. You now know that your path will include resistance, not because you're doing something wrong, because growth disrupts comfort. You disrupt comfort, and that's not a flaw. It's part of your calling. The people who tried to block you may never understand the role they played in your development. They might believe they succeeded. They might think they stopped you. But the truth is quieter and far more powerful. They didn't stop you. They redirected you. They pushed you onto a path where your strength had room to expand. And that strength is still expanding, right now, in ways you may not fully recognize yet. But you will, because every step forward from this point carries the wisdom you earned through resistance. And wisdom is something no one can block once you possess it. A Chosen One. This chapter is about the moment you stop looking back. Not because the past didn't matter, it did. Every delay, every closed door, every conversation that left you sitting in silence afterward, trying to understand what just happened. All of that shaped you. But there comes a point where looking back too often starts to drain the energy you need for what's ahead. And I think you're arriving at that point now. For a while, you needed to understand what happened. You needed to replay certain moments in your mind to see the patterns clearly. You needed to realize that not every smile meant support, and not every opportunity was meant to last. That understanding was part of your growth. But there's something different happening now. You're not replaying those moments as much anymore. Not because you forgot them, because they've finished teaching you what they needed to teach. That's how healing often looks. Quiet, gradual. One day, you realize that a memory that once felt heavy now feels distant, like something that belonged to another chapter of your life. You're not angry the way you once were. You're not desperate to prove anything to the people who doubted you. You're simply moving forward. And that forward movement is powerful. Because when you stop trying to rewrite the past, you finally give your full attention to the future. There's a subtle confidence growing in you right now. Not loud, not the kind that needs to be announced, the kind that shows up in your posture, in the way you speak, in the decisions you make without over-explaining yourself. You've started trusting your instincts more. You notice when something feels misaligned. You notice when a conversation carries the same energy as situations you've already outgrown. And instead of ignoring that feeling, you respect it. That respect for your inner voice is something you didn't always have. There was a time when you second-guessed yourself constantly, when you needed reassurance from others before taking a step, when someone else's opinion could change your entire direction. That's not the case anymore. Now you listen, you observe, and then you decide. It's a quiet authority. And it didn't come from comfort. It came from friction. It came from the moments when people tried to block you, when the path ahead looked uncertain, when you had to rely on your own judgment because no one else was guiding you. That's how leaders are formed. not in moments of applause, but in moments of solitude. You learned how to stand alone without collapsing. You learned how to keep moving even when support was thin. You learned how to trust that what was meant for you could not be erased by someone else's resistance. And now something inside you has settled. You don't need to fight every battle. You don't need to correct every misunderstanding. You don't need to convince everyone of your worth. Your energy is too valuable for that. You're choosing where it goes. And that choice is shaping the next chapter of your life. There will still be challenges ahead. That's part of any meaningful journey, but you will approach them differently now. With patience instead of panic. With discernment instead of reaction. You're learning that strength doesn't always mean pushing harder. Sometimes it means stepping back and letting time reveal what effort cannot. Sometimes it means walking away from something that once seemed important. Sometimes it means trusting that what was decided for your life cannot be undone by human interference. That trust changes how you move. It removes desperation from your steps. You're no longer chasing every opportunity. You're walking toward the ones that align. And alignment has a way of opening doors that force could never open. Chosen one, the people who tried to block you are no longer the center of your story. They were part of the terrain, a chapter, a lesson. But they are not the destination. The destination was always bigger than them, bigger than their doubts, bigger than their attempts to control what they never truly understood. God already decided. That truth doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you calm. Calm enough to keep building without needing immediate recognition. Calm enough to keep moving even when the road bends in ways you didn't expect. Calm enough to trust that what is meant for you cannot be permanently blocked. You're not the same person who first encountered those obstacles. You're stronger now, wiser, more grounded. And that version of you is exactly who was needed for what comes next. So don't waste your energy looking back too often. You've already learned what you needed from that chapter. Now your focus belongs to the road ahead, because the path that was decided for you is still unfolding. A chosen one, this final chapter is about the quiet realization that nothing they did actually stopped you. For a long time, it may have felt like they did, like the door they closed changed the entire direction of your life, like the opportunity that disappeared left a permanent mark on your story. When you're standing inside the moment of disappointment, it's hard to see beyond it. Everything feels final, but time has a way of revealing the truth. What once looked like a dead end slowly begins to look like a detour. You start noticing small things, moments that wouldn't have happened if that door had stayed open, conversations with people you never would have met, opportunities that appeared from directions you never expected. And slowly, the realization forms. They didn't stop you. They only changed the route. At first, that realization can feel strange, almost unsettling, because it means that the power you thought they had over your future was never real to begin with. They could resist you. They could doubt you. They could step in the way for a moment, but they could never rewrite what was meant for your life. That decision was never in their hands. There's a certain peace that arrives when you truly understand this. A calm that settles into your thinking. You stop carrying resentment. You stop replaying those moments where someone tried to diminish you. Not because you forgot, because you finally see the bigger picture. If everything had gone the way you originally planned, you might have stayed in places that were too small for you. You might have settled into environments that required you to dim your own potential just to keep the peace. Instead, you were forced to keep moving, forced to keep growing, forced to discover strengths you didn't know you had. Sometimes the blockages we face are actually invitations to step into a wider space, invitations to trust ourselves more deeply, invitations to stop waiting for permission. You accepted that invitation even when you didn't realize it at the time. Think about the version of you who first encountered that resistance, the uncertainty, the frustration, the feeling that someone else had the authority to determine your path. You're not that person anymore. You've grown through the experience. You've learned how to keep moving without constant approval. You've learned how to hold your vision even when someone else questions it. You've learned how to remain steady when the path becomes unpredictable. That steadiness is not accidental. It's the result of everything you've walked through. Chosen one, the truth is simple, even if the journey to understand it wasn't. What is decided for your life cannot be permanently blocked by human interference. People may delay things. They may misunderstand you. They may doubt your direction. But their doubt is not the final authority. The path that belongs to you continues unfolding whether they recognize it or not. And the most powerful part of this realization is that you no longer need to fight them. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to convince them they were wrong. Your growth will speak for itself, not in loud declarations, in quiet progress, in the life you continue building, in the way you carry yourself with calm instead of bitterness. That calm is the sign that something inside you has matured. You've stepped out of the need for validation and into the rhythm of purpose. Purpose doesn't rush. Purpose moves steadily. Purpose doesn't panic when a door closes. It simply keeps walking until the right one appears, and the right one always does. Because the decision was never made by the people who tried to block you. It was made long before they entered your story. God already decided, not just the destination, but the person you would become along the way. Stronger, more discerning, more grounded. The obstacles were never the end of your story. They were the shaping of it. So if you look back now, don't see enemies, see turning points, moments where the road shifted in ways you couldn't understand at the time. Moments that pushed you closer to the version of yourself you were always meant to become. Chosen one, they tried to block you, but what belongs to you was never theirs to control. And the path ahead of you is still opening, step by step, exactly as it was meant to.